joining, guys. Again, this is a pre-recorded session for Extra Life. So whatever you guys say will be shown next week on Saturday. And by then, we obviously are going to be out with 4.7, so feel free to discuss the production of 4.7. But for now, I definitely want to make sure that you guys introduce yourselves. So we're going to start from top, from Geoff to Darold, and then so on.
How long of an introduction do you want, Arlette?
Hour and a half introduction. Want to know everything about
An hour and a half.
So starts from the day you were born.
You're being handed something.
That's called
Thank
flash.
Go for it.
You were handed Bing Crosby.
So having not gotten an answer.
That's fine. Hi, yes, my name is Geoff Haines. I'm the lead gameplay engineer on World of Tanks console. I've been in that position for about 2.5 years now, and I've been making games for about 14 years or so.
Hi, I'm Gabriel Bott. I'm our lead tech artist. I've been here forever, and I've been making games a little bit longer than that. So.
Hi, I am Daniel Pinch. I started January 2nd of this year, so I've been here for just almost 11 months. I am just a game designer, no lead. My title is lead, but I'm excited to talk to everybody.
Hi, my name's Darold. I'm sort of the designer here, sort of. Narrative stuff. That's what
Narrative stuff.
Sorta. Well, we're kind of glad to have you.
Design stuff. Hi, I'm Nick Guida. I am a senior gameplay designer on the World of Tanks Mercenaries team.
Hello. No, I'm Geoff Gregg, lead designer, picking my nose while talking to you. And this is
Leo Flores, senior game designer.
Awesome. Not wearing a tank shirt today, I see.
It's actually a tank shirt, but it's really, really abstracted.
Goonies.
Interesting. All right, so I usually take this opportunity to talk about 2018. It's been a year since we've done a Developers Roundtable. And I want to start talking about the anniversary tank, which was the Shigaru Teke. I know in a couple of months we will be celebrating our 5th anniversary.
Good
so
God.
Players are kind of curious to see what you guys are going to do in the future, but they also want to discuss as to what was the planning process of the free tank for everyone that plays World Tanks console.
The planning process for the free tank? I mean, well, first of all, it's got to be cool, but like, I don't know, like how do you qualify a free tank? Because like it's inevitably free and cool. So what goes on to it? What goes on top of just like, hey, here's something free?
I mean, it's something that we try to do that's unique. It's not incredibly high tier. It's something that's easily accessible to everybody, where they can dip their feet into the game. Generally, it's something that we haven't released before, or usually it's just specifically made for that purpose of being a gift tank. So I mean, you're going to do well in it, but you're not going to do amazingly well. It's not going to be like the OP tank in the game, but something to give out for people.
Yeah, I mean, it has to serve a lot of masters, right?
Yeah.
Like new people will get it if they've jumped in early enough. All of our veterans will get it because they've earned it. I mean, everybody's earned it. So like, it serves a lot of masters. You got to. But then we try to
put our spin on it, and make it a little cooler with our usual specific designs. So.
A couple of players were suggesting that if the next tank, if there's going to be one, to kind of celebrate the 5th anniversary, make it a tier 5.
What's a tier 5, hey?
Good luck with that.
Well, I mean, tier 5, halfway through the power curve. I get it. I mean, remember like the T14, and there's been a lot of precedent for tier 5 kind of gifts within certain circumstances. Every once in a while, I still look at the analytics at the T14 PS just to see who's doing that. There's not that many people playing it, and whoever's playing it is either ungodly amazing, or I think puts the controller down and goes away.
So that one was a lot harder to get. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, tier 5, that makes sense to me.
See, we'd probably be fine with it, but everyone else in like publishing and everyone else would probably be against that. So beg, scream, write letters, whatever you want. But I mean, that is not.
We'd love to give it to you, but those people.
Those people. So, and then this generally turned into a recording of us attacking the rest of the company. It was weird.
Yeah, the suit's upstairs.
It happened.
Do any of you participate in in-game events? For example, early this year we had Tank Ball, and obviously the Soviets won yet again.
Yeah.
I mean.
Oh, you mean like play on?
Yeah.
When you said events, I thought you meant, do you go to Gamescom or something like that?
No, in-game events.
Yeah, I think like actually.
The only events that matter.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler, while we're recording this, we were just playing the Halloween mode. I know it's in the future now, but like that's where we are right this second. So yeah, we're in those events all the time. Are you trying to stir up rhymes with zits on the fact that the Soviets won and Tank Bowl is here? Is that what you're trying to do over
Well,
there?
it wasn't just Tank Bowl, also Clash of Titans this past year. Soviet tanks won. So I'm wondering,
There's a lot of
do
strong
you
Soviet
guys
tanks.
have a special or preferable nationality? And if you do you participate in in-game events?
I played the underdog every single time.
He does.
I was
It's
Sweden.
horrible.
I was the Czechoslovakian tanks. Like I fought the good fight. I love Swedish.
Although I
tanks.
did join with Sweden.
I
It all
love
depends.
Swedish tanks.
See, for me, it's about the matchups. So, I mean, if I like one nation more than the other, like when it was Sweden, I'm like, oh, I'm totally going on that side. Well,
Darold is deep in thought.
Yeah, what's your favorite
happening?
non-mainstream
He's
nation?
just-
See, the
I
prob-
can see
yeah.
him think.
No, the problem is I was going to say I play Soviet tanks all the time. That's why I didn't want to say anything.
Put Soviet tanks aside. Like,
Not
what's
the
your
only
favorite?
one.
Like, what I will say,
Hipster.
non-mainstream nation.
But
Like-
if I say Chinese, then they're also Soviet tanks largely. But.
Oh. Well, I mean the TDs, the FTs.
Okay.
Do you
well,
play Chinese TDs?
No, I don't play Chinese TDs actually. I'm a medium and heavy tank player, so that's pretty much all I play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
see,
thought I
for-
saw you playing SPGs.
Yeah,
You definitely
I
was.
started because I've been basically I haven't played them for so long that I figured, okay, I finally need to start playing SPG.
I thought it was the
Artillery.
sweet trajectory view.
Yeah, it is nice. I do like it.
What about you guys? Non-mainstream nation.
I'm not very good, so I just play premium tanks, whatever nation that is.
Oh, you played the premium nation.
Yeah, that's my
What's
nation.
up?
I also do the same thing, actually. Yeah, it's always premiums. They're a lot of fun.
I've seen you in the Trinity Mark II a lot.
Train Mark 2 is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean those mercenary tanks. Mercenary tanks. We'll have to decide for Tank Bowl with Mercenary line. We got a whole other ball game in play now.
Do they count for both?
Or all of them.
Could.
They're like free agents.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
What about?
They're not draft picks.
What about the other Jeff?
I'm a horrible person to answer this question. I like the ones that
He's
I've
like,
actually
"Okay."
worked a long time to get to. I think that's where my allegiance lies, which is on the high-end American line. So like
Mm.
T-57.
Well, it's a good tank.
Stuff like that. T-92. So.
Mm.
That's
So
fun.
TDs and heavies?
SPG.
SPG.
Oh, SPG. I'm sorry. I heard a 5, not a 2. I'm sorry.
We have several seasons of ranked battles. What has been the progression like from earlier this year to now? I know a lot of players have been asking to change tiers and maybe even make changes to allowing more maps or more people in them. What has been the experience like, and what was the goal of making certain changes for this year?
So I think the big thing about ranked battles from like their inception season to where we are now is keep it simple, stupid really applies. Like I think we were just overly complex in those first couple seasons, and then I actually remember not last season, but maybe 2 seasons ago, like I had to do something which I hope these guys will tell me if I'm wrong. It's pretty rare where I just put my foot down and I'm like, I don't care if we hemorrhage rewards. Everyone's got to understand the rules. Like even if they're like these rules are dumb and I hate you, they at least intimately understand the rules. So we went really, really simple with the rules and the point gaining and loss and the water lines and all that stuff. And I think we were the most successful with that season. Now we need to figure out how to apply to different tiers and different classes and what the rewards should be to keep that being fresh. But yeah, it's really easy to be too complex in the game, especially since it's team-based, right? It's not you versus the universe. Even though you're trying to grind your own rank, you're still in a team environment. Did you guys play the ranked battles?
I was gonna say, I think one of the benefits for our studio is that we can gain like some insights from other products. So like, I think we took some of the lessons from the PC version of ranked battles and how sort of their implementation and sort of like that had the stripped down point system that seemed very straightforward. So I think that's what we ended up taking in terms of like, hey, maybe we should try this approach for this season, and I think we saw a lot of success from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a really complex point scoring system, you need to like articulate that very, very well and have it like be in the players' faces and have like online resources and in-game resources that are very, very explicit about what all the rules are, and that's very difficult to do. And I think it's still, you're kind of missing the mark. So the worst thing is to have a player play a game and just not know why what just happened, like why it happened. So that's why we kind of simplified the rules, is So even if we're being a little bit more generous or whatever, at least people understand what the path to success is. It's not fun when it feels like you're just, flipping a coin, basically.
Or even doing a really good job and losing anyway.
Yeah, not knowing why.
Fart noise.
It looks like we've only had the very last 2 war stories, which was Spoils of War and the Heist. Is there going to be a future development of these, or do you think this would be a really good collection of chapters for new players to kind of experience and then progress to the game?
Well, we still see new players and existing players going to the current war stories. I mean, I love war stories. I'd love to keep making more. It always comes down to priorities, right? Like right now, we've got the Mercenary line and all these new features and a bunch of really cool stuff that I really want to talk about, and I can't. Like, that all takes, like, development time. Do you like that little sneak drop in there of, like oh, there's cool stuff I can't talk about, but, which is true. Yeah, I mean, war stories takes a lot of designers and content creators and engineers offline to make all that better and sing and get all the localized videos and put together the scenarios and testing and make sure it's not a farm and make sure it's fun the first pass and make sure that wherever we localize both the script and the dialogue, we don't have a different nation, country, ethnic group or something going like, you said what, and then we have to rewrite things, which has happened. That's happened before. So yeah, I mean, they're just a big investment, and I would keep pumping them out, but it's not always up to me on what the priorities are. And honestly, I agree with our priorities, knowing where we are.
And honestly, I think we have quite a few hours of gameplay there, especially for people who haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
And there's plenty to do. And then, if you have, then you can always, mix and match, unlock challenge mode, bring in other tanks, and try it that way too.
I still take the Runaway Tiger on all the war stories. The Tigre, that's the name? Yeah, I love that tank. That tank is amazing.
That's actually one of the most popular war stories.
Yeah.
For the game.
That's cool.
I remember the first time I saw the marketing art of Delacroix, or man, her last name.
Sophie,
did I get it right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. I remembered her name. I'm terrible with names. I was like, oh hot damn, I want to play this. What game? Oh, it's ours. Yay! I just hadn't seen that before because I'm so knee deep in the polygons.
Well, I'm asking the War Stories question because the publishing of the very last 2 chapters kind of led into the unveil of Mercenaries, which has been, I think, one of the biggest topics of conversations for the past couple months since they released. And I wanted to know exactly from each one of you what was your involvement in War Stories and what can maybe expect in the future.
In Mercenaries or War Stories?
I'm sorry, Mercenaries.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Mercenaries.
Someone on the top row start.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, as the gameplay lead, it's sort of like my position is to, at a high level, to work with the design team and stuff and sort of get the ideas that they wanted to implement within the Mercenaries, like, as a system and contracts, and how are we going to implement the contracts, where are they going to evolve, and giving all the support for that stuff, and then taking those tasks and sort of doling them out to the team and making sure that all of that is delivered on time and meets their expectations and stuff. So there's, I don't know, my involvement was sort of from the beginning in terms of the planning and the design and development all the way to the end, to post-release and fixing issues, and then continuing to support it as we release new features and stuff for that. So it's sort of, end to end and continuing.
How much of your time is actually coding stuff for Mercs versus delegating and helping out other engineers? Just in terms of a slice of your life.
Most of my time, I would say, I'm probably only coding maybe 10% of the time, just because I was given really good advice when I took over from the previous lead, to not take the ownership of very critical and important pieces of code that are meant for shipping, because your time is always going to get soaked up, and you don't want to hold things back. And so most of my involvement is like sort of doing the investigation and then passing that off and guiding that engineer, to actually develop the feature. And then if I need to fix a bug last minute, or I'm the most available, or there's some side part that I can write on my own, then yeah, that would be where that other 10% kind of comes in.
Mm-hmm.
On the art side with Mercenaries, we're really just trying to, we're always constantly refining the graphics, pushing things, trying to make things look better. But with Mercenaries, we really wanted to bring up kind of the ambience in the levels and animated things, and just we added more dynamic lights, more animated stuff, more visual effects, just to try to make the levels look more alive and more exciting than they did in the past. We spent a lot of time kind of figuring out how to do that because we're always kind of pushing the consoles to the limit, so just had to find some more space so we could push some more stuff into the consoles.
Would you say you're more involved with like the garage and the levels, the vehicles, or both from your perspective?
The tech art team's kind of involved with everything. Mostly the stuff we can't talk about because we're always kind of ahead of the rest of the team figuring out what the next new cool thing is. But yeah, we help out with the environment team, the tank team, and work with the graphics engineers pretty much to constantly make the game look as good as it can and run as good as it can.
My turn. I was mostly involved with the war stories for Mercenaries. I know really early on I helped Leo and Geoff get some of the early Mercenaries like actually built with just the parts from the tanks that currently exist to see if they were fun and what Leo needed to drastically change or say this isn't going to work, or have tech art be like this isn't going to work.
Or the players.
Yeah,
this isn't going to work. Yeah.
A lot of variables when it came to that. But for war stories, I worked a lot with our level designers and Darold and Geoff to figure out what we're going to do for the actual gameplay, what the story is going to be, and then how we're going to implement new features. So one thing we added was in the end of Spoils of War, we have the submarine that you blow up, and we had to revamp our entire destructible system in order to support some of the things like health bar showing up, assigning a team to it, because it can be on your team, it can be a neutral team, it can be on the enemy team. So I was doing a lot of stuff like that.
You're pretty plugged into the AI too, right?
I was plugged into the AI, yeah. For war stories, we try to improve it as much as we could. We're always improving it and spinning out new things for the AI to do. Some cool stuff coming up that I would love to talk about right now, but we can't.
A theme.
Yeah. But for war stories, we added some new AI behaviors that the level designers and scripters could mess around with, which was pretty cool. And added new ways to track like AI health. If the health of an AI hits a certain point, what do we want to do? Do we want to spawn more guys? Do we want to initiate a boss fight and stuff like that?
Well, this is why I was so guilty, because I got to do the fun part. So I was tasked to try to think of a story that first we had to kind of tie in two sets of stories, and then a universe that kind of fit those stories. So that's kind of what I was doing. So initially that started off with a lot of historical research, because I had to figure out what points in history are we going to kind of play with to set up the universe that we wanted, because we had an idea what the end goal story was going to be, but we had to figure out how to create a universe that fit into that end goal.
How do we get there?
Yeah, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the research is, but again, I'm doing this in parallel to all this other work, and it's a little bit different in the sense that a lot of people expect those answers before we can get to the other parts. So everyone is kind of working at different times on this project, and so I'm usually at the very beginning and at the very end. Because at the very beginning, we're trying to set up the context and the universe and all that other stuff. I really enjoy that because it means doing a lot of research, looking at different ways of how can I play with history to kind of fit the storyline that we're looking for, and then working on one story, knowing that it's going to lead to the other story, which is also really fun. Because before that, everything was kind of an isolated vignette. But the idea that we could actually build a story that we're carrying characters through now, and we can actually work on these characters, and they can have a little bit more depth to them. So that was a lot of fun. But again, when you're playing with history, there's also some delicacies that you have to be aware of, and we struggled with that a little bit. Okay, a lot, but eventually we got through all that. But that was probably the big challenge for that.
Yeah. So on Mercenaries, I was taking a lot of Darold's work, his characters he was creating for the mercs, and I was doing a lot of like the back end kind of busy work, really, just to make sure that the merc nation can exist and that it has its own consumables, and it can have its own crew members, and they look like this, and they have these names. I also headed up the effort on the design side to make the new Mercenary garage with the art team, and we wanted to get you out of that spooky, dingy, dark garage and get you out in the open in the sunlight. And, yeah. I'm really excited with the garage. I hope you are. I also animated that opening cutscene where like all the tanks show up and the bombs start going off, and it's like, Mercenaries, check it out. So that was fun to do. I hadn't done that before. And then once Mercenaries had launched and we were getting feedback about the contracts, I jumped in to kind of help revamp the direction of contracts. We're getting a lot of feedback that was saying, hey, it's really hard to complete this contract because you're asking me to have, these 3 tanks that I don't have, or whatever it was. We were maybe a little too strict with our requirements early on. So I and a few others kind of stepped in to revamp that system and make contracts the lovely feature that you enjoy to this day. Why are you laughing?
You should have seen the way Geoff was looking at you.
Like with just desire.
Desire.
I mean contempt.
Desire. I mean desire.
Anyway, I'm the lead. I just tell guys to do stuff. No, that's not true. It's partially true. I mean, for Mercenaries, if you go all the way to like the beginning goals, we were like, what is 2018's core focus going to be? And we've Mercenaries been bandied around for a long time, both like on forums and talked internally, and it's never really up until that point gelled to what the hell it meant. It's just like the word mercenary sounds cool. And then so we tried to distill that into goals, which is, I mean, obviously it's World of Tanks. What's the third word? Tanks. We're going to make more vehicles. We want to fulfill the promise of being a mercenary. Like, being a mercenary is more than just like, I'm an American, I'm going to fight for the US of A, or I'm a German and I'm going to fight for Germany, or I'm French, I'm going to fight for France. It's about someone who's in it for the cash, which honestly is interestingly a really good parallel for World of Tanks, because like, at the end of the day, every one of you is playing because your silver's going up, your XP's going up, and you're grinding. Yes, there's also platoons, you're hanging out with your friends, or you're playing a special event mode like the Halloween mode we just talked about. But there's goals about like, I want these vehicles, and you're either spending real money to get gold to get the vehicle, or you're earning it via an op, or you're grinding up one of the tech trees. So like, that's kind of mercenary in a way, right? Like, I'm going to go fight to build this resource to get a thing. So we wanted a new way to earn vehicles, to add another behavior and context and ask of players and do something fun, and that's how contracts were born, because it feels like very mercenary. Take a contract, get your reward, it's a vehicle. Once you go through the entire contract, either by buying it out or doing all the tasks that each stage requires you to do. That was something that we spent some time till we boiled it down to just that system, and that's the way you acquire mercenary tanks. And then eventually, like up to now, like now we have like premium mercenary vehicles as well. We wanted them to be cool in terms of the way that the crews are. So the crews are actually photographs of real wargaming employees that have really special skills and perks and really cool personas about them, and have like a little bit of backstory. And the vehicles have some personality. We wanted to make sure it's like, if you live and die by this vehicle, which is basically a gathering of parts that you managed to weld together to function, like how would you decorate it? What would you call it? You wouldn't call it like the T-34 or the T-50 heavy or whatever like that, or the elect tractor. You probably have some cool name for it. So we have fun with the names, and it became this extra nation full of just cool stuff with like a ton of risk, right? Whenever you add vehicles that are based off of a alternate history imagining and injected into this system where you're continuing to also stay true to the historical accuracy of these tanks that people are grinding up and spending, and then you want those to mesh like this versus compete with each other and screw each other up. It was a risk. So it was also all of our responsibility, and I was trying to make sure we were all aiming in the right direction to make sure that risk was mitigated. So we talked to a lot of players, and even like before, and I talked about this a little bit in a presentation I did before, like even before any of these vehicles existed, they were literally just like an Excel spreadsheet of what if this engine and this turret and this gun and this chassis and this hull and this radio all existed, what saith you? And a lot of people were like, garbage, sacrilege, and other people were like, this is awesome, and what do you think of this idea? And we combed the forums and everything. So like the player interaction and the player feedback was verbose, I think, and that was another thing I tried to manage, because like there's these experts here that know all about the systems and say this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, and then there's you experts out there that are playing it day in day out, probably playing it right as I'm flapping my lips, and everyone has to be happy, everyone has to agree that we're making the best product for the players. And there you go. There's a lot of words, but that's basically what Mercenaries was to me and how I tried to keep it afloat.
You?
I just make all the mercenary tanks.
There you go.
And a few words.
No, I think that really follows my chattiness well.
I will say I thought one of the things I'm remembering now, the interesting things, so there was a lot of meetings between Geoff and I throughout the process in terms of like.
Oh, note those. Okay.
I mean, there was
Fight Club.
one wrestling match and then one arm wrestling match and one like an MMA type.
Yeah, that was pretty knockdown drag out.
Right.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it was like deciding, okay, what are the core things about Mercenaries that we really want to deliver? Like, what are the things that really make this important, and how do we make sure that those things get delivered on time and like in a state that's acceptable, like that is like the best possible experience for the players and stuff, and just sort of boiling all of that down and making the right decisions, as best as possible to like ship a great product. So,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure this crossed your mind at some point, but I want to know what your mercenary name would be, according to you, if you were a crew.
Are we going to do the same order?
Yes.
That means you have to start, Geoff.
Thunderbeard.
Thunderbeard.
Oh, actually, I like that.
Thunderbeard. And his trusty vehicle. You gonna leave me hanging?
Come back to me on that one. Let's do our
Thunderbeard and the come back to me. Anyway. Gabe.
Gabe's lost in thought.
Man, yeah.
The man, yeah. That's a cool.
There you go. Yeah, man, yeah.
Tall boy.
Do we already have a tall boy?
I don't think so.
All right,
No,
tall
no.
boy.
When I was looking through the
No.
list of all the thrown away tanks,
And
there was a
man, yeah.
lot of talls, a
Man, yeah.
lot of fats, a lot of a lot of rods.
Yeah.
You can be tall boy and
Coming
you
up
can-
soon,
Yeah.
actually, those ones.
I'm gonna go with an inside joke, and it's a meme, but I'm gonna be the goose guy.
The goose guy.
Yeah.
That's
So designers
solid.
understand what this
Creepy.
is.
That's but it's apropos.
So I've been told that I
Oh,
am.
no.
Yeah, I know. I've been told that I'm the anime wizard, but I'm gonna go with. I'll just go with the wizard because I think that's a little bit.
Why would you put
easier.
that
No,
out?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Now it's yeah. it's-
Anime wizard.
I'd
Too late.
really hate for
Yeah.
someone to take a still from this video and do a meme. That would
Oh, no,
suck.
No,
Don't do that. Don't Photoshop on an anime wizard hat onto Darold. Do not.
And also, Archie,
Don't.
don't give them like 5 seconds where it's actually the green screen behind us so they can put whatever they want back there. That would be terrible. I wouldn't do that at all.
We have that, don't we? I think we have a catalog of something like that.
Sure, you have a library of images
Oh,
of
yeah.
Darold.
Freeze frame wizard hat.
Freeze frame wizard hat. Is that yours, Nick? What's yours, Nick?
That's my tank.
Jim Togman.
Jim Togman.
Oh, I can see where
In
that
his
goes.
mercenary vehicle, the Tog 3.
The Tog. Wow. Is that a Tog and a Tog 2 bolted together? Or
It's 3 Togs stacked on top of each other in like a pyramid.
Yeah.
vertically? Oh,
I
pyramid.
thought
Yeah.
it was a Tog centipede.
Well, it's like
Oh.
one big Tog with 2 little Togs are the tracks for the big Tog.
Just brought that up.
Can we make this?
We just did.
Leo, can we make this? Yes, we can make this.
But engineering says no, so it's
Ah,
Yikes.
We can
the
still make
suit's
it.
upstairs.
yeah, right behind.
You know, there's a bunch of things that I'd want to be, but I think one thing that's accurate, especially near the end of the day,
Yes.
is Captain Fatalistic. I think that would be that fits. Usually when I leave for the day, I drop some like, well, but we're all gonna die. See you tomorrow. So
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do that a lot.
I think that there's a character limit, so I don't think that would be possible.
Captain Fatal then.
Better.
All right, sorry. Yeah, really localized into Russian.
Yeah,
I
like
don't
that in
know.
our imaginary scenario, Arla is worried about like the
Loc strings.
the
We're
16
all
character
professionals
limit.
here.
Yeah, all right.
That went past
I
your
just
head.
cheat and use my gamer tag. I just use Plague, so.
Would you pilot the Plague Bringer? Plague in the
Probably.
Well,
Probably.
you just kick the other tanker out of that thing.
Yeah.
I don't even
Still
remember
stick
which
around there.
crew is in the Plague Bringer. Do you remember off the top of your head? Do you remember off the top of your head?
No.
Not either. No.
I'm thinking, I'm like, wait, there's so many mercenaries.
There are a lot of mercenaries.
Other new features or new content in game this
Nope, we're
year
done. No more new features.
was the
Oh, it's a question. I'm sorry.
commander mode. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about it?
I
It
think
was
Daniel
a
wants to talk
lot of
about
good
it.
feedback
Commander
in the
mode.
forums.
We made a
Players,
table.
Jeff Haines just
yeah.
Made a table.
We made World of War tables.
Yeah.
So
That was
Fun
pretty
bug.
cool.
It is cool.
Well, I
Who
mean,
wants to talk?
I don't know. I think in a general sense, I think that's the thing that about that is that we have the opportunity with our game to explore some new, ways of presenting the game. Like, And one of those was, the idea came up of having sort of an RTS style game, and like, is that something that we can do and put out there and have it be an experience that's interesting, and sort of gather the feedback from our player base to say like, hey, is this something that is interesting to play, that you all enjoy it, and testing out those ideas, and having a weekend and maybe extending beyond that, to sort of, I don't want to use the phrase spice things up, but that's what I'm going to say.
But you just did.
You just did. It's out there.
Bam.
So they spice things up.
And so, yeah, I think that's as a developer, it's for me, my satisfaction is from this job, especially, is that I like that we're always doing new things, and that we're always learning new things or trying new things, or there's sort of constant development there and keeping things interesting. So like, hey, we're going to try to do this RTS mode. Okay, well, how do we make that happen in the amount of time that we have? And then providing that and seeing the feedback and going from there is, whether it works or not, it's at least an interesting thing that we're able to do. And hopefully people like it, and we can like take the feedback and then make it even better.
Anybody got anything else on TC they want to talk about?
As everybody in the room.
The guy.
Slowly.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, so
Daniel.
yeah, me. So yeah, I was the principal designer on that endeavor, and it was really interesting because I joined the company in January, learning how World of Tanks is built and all these different systems and programs and tools. And
then they were like, "Don't do any of that."
yeah, and then they're like, "Let's do something different. How about you make an RTS with, the tools
With
that
this
you
bag
have?"
of sand.
Yeah.
Well, you're fresh and you're untainted. You have
Yeah,
a child's eye.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. That's what Geoff came to me with. Yeah.
Listen, child eye, make an RTS. That's exactly how it went
That's
down.
his Mercenary.
That's
Child eye is a cool
Child eye?
mercenary
Child
name.
I don't know if I go with cool, but all right.
Child eye.
We like it.
Oh, God.
This guy with his child's eye.
Don't mess with child eye.
But yeah, it was
Does he
a
have a
really
child's eye?
getting off of child's
He's
eye.
got two of them.
It's like angel eyes, and because he's bad in the other.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, is it like
Is that what I did?
Just hanging on
necklace
to
or
Oh,
something?
sure,
Like
that
creepy.
too. Yeah.
Things have devolved.
They have devolved.
They have degenerated, but
Tank Commander.
I was going somewhere with that, and then we talked about children's eyeballs around the back apparently. So
That's what I do.
For the remainder of the
Welcome,
stream.
welcome to the design pit.
I ask people to do things and then we all derail each other.
Yeah. We worked really closely with our Australian team, though, so we basically had around-the-clock development cycle going on for Tank Commander, which was really useful.
Sun never set on Tank Commander.
Yeah, so we were always having constant play tests, either here, when the game was in a playable state and not buggy, or the team in Australia was doing the exact same thing, gathering feedback, testing out maps in different tank compositions, talking with the guys here. The designers all played it multiple times. And got a lot of good feedback from them on the controls, on the units, the map, stuff like that. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and yeah, like Haines mentioned, it's cool that we get to try these things out.
I swear to God, like event modes, like the Halloween mode. I'm gonna keep coming back to that because it's so fresh in my brain. We were just all revenants. The Lunar, the Tog C, like. How far can we stretch our event modes? What can we really do? And I swear to you, we took an RTS on a console and made it within a pretty accelerated timeline. Now, I'm not going to say we've made the best RTS known to man, and that wasn't even the point. It was, hey, let's use an event mode to take the mechanics that already exist, that we know that people enjoy, see what happens when instead of being third-person, first-person, sniper, arcade, or strategic, if you're in more of a god eye and fighting each other and trying to strategically move TBD number of units, child's eye, sorry, good correction.
Derail.
And we did it, and we found things that worked about it, and we found things that need to be better, and we found things in people that say, why are you wasting your time? And like, I think all of that is super valuable feedback, and it's super cool that we're able to do that.
Yeah, what's fun with all that stuff, same like Geoff was saying, we're always trying to do new stuff, and we're always building off stuff we've tried, whether it worked or not. It will never go away, and it will come back as something new, and we just keep doing it. It's half the fun of making this game.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times even features that we've developed to support event mode have then come full circle back into the main mode to like service the game. Like we didn't have pickups in our game until we did, I think, the Mark 1.
Was it Mark 1 or
Yeah, it was
Under
Mark
the
1.
Christmas Tree?
Mark 1 for the flamethrower.
Okay.
So we didn't have
Okay.
pickups in our game until we did that, and then we have pickups in our PvE modes now.
Yeah,
Technically,
war
we
stories.
also use that to get engineering to work on it.
Well, that's, I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
it's leverage.
Don't give away the secrets.
that always comes back as like, hey, we got this idea for the game. Like, you remember in the event mode when we did this? So it's totally possible, right? That wasn't a hack.
It was totally a hack.
Usually those conversations start with, how hard would it be?
Yeah. So I wrote the Python.
Yeah,
it
just,
just
look at my
works.
swarm review. It's if then, if then, if then, if then, if then, if then. Divide by 0. What's the problem?
How hard would it be?
I know that some of you have talked to players, not only just in the forums, but, you know, one-on-one. For example, we had the player gathering at Cantini recently. And I just wanted to know what has been like to meet players and what things have they discussed with you?
I love meeting players. Like, I love Cantini, Gamescom I mentioned earlier, PAX East and PAX Prime. Like, any chance that I personally can meet players. Like, one of the things you may have even noticed about me is one of my motivations is to have an audience. Hi, everyone. And so, like, being able to meet players and get their feedback, both good and bad, and questions, why would you do thing, and I am trying to do this, and this thing you did really slowed me down, and why'd you do that, or this is awesome, so thank you very much for doing that. The analogy I draw is disc product or cartridge product, if I date myself, or download and go, is more like a movie. If you bear with me, you work really hard on it. You maybe do some viewings. You edit it a couple times, and then whoosh, it's out there. And I hope to God it works. And maybe we'll do some DLC. To me, games as a service is more like a play, where the audience is right in front of you. And yeah, maybe you don't see them because the stage lights are in your face, but when they start booing or cheering, you know right away. And I love and live for that, and that's why World of Tanks is so awesome. Yeah, I mean, we get to make an RTS, and we get to make the Halloween tanks and everything, but we get to live in this ecosystem where we sometimes have to put on our big boy pants or whatever, but like we get feedback right away, and we know really quickly what the response is, and then we choose how to respond to that, and if we agree or disagree, and all that kind of good stuff, and I love that.
See, I just like meeting the wide range of people. Like, we like to make the game, and we hope people that like it, but when you actually meet people, and then, you know, they're overly ecstatic, and they're just super excited about the game, they're like, I remember one time at Cantigny, there was like a whole entire family who played it. Like, one person would be on one TV, someone else would be on a different TV, then other people in the family played on PC. And, you know, they all came out, they drove like 5 hours, and they were all super excited just to get a chance to talk to us.
That was redneck Italian. His family.
Probably. And then, like, another time, or just going on like some of the trips for like the Merc events, like I was talked to like a couple of historians. Funny thing is, a lot of the historians there who were reenactors and everything for the event we were at, like, they're an older group, they're veterans. You wouldn't expect them to play the game, but a lot of them were diehard fans, and they had lots of questions about, you know, arties, different tank classes. Like, they'd all get together, and it's just surprising, like, the groups of people that come together to play the game. And you just expect, like, this one little group, but it's almost everybody, so.
Was that at Long Island?
That one was American History Museum, Museum of Armor, something. Yeah, it was near Long Island, but yeah, it's around there.
Just make it up.
A place on the East Coast.
The
but yeah.
National Tank Track Museum of Long Island.
It's just word salad at that point.
Yeah. I've been on the Cantini panel the last 2 years, and I love it. Because having worked on sort of the games that sort of ship and then they're just done and they're gone, you can't. The biggest thing that's frustrating as a developer, for me at least, is that people have legitimate issues and we can't do anything about it. It's just like, it's done when it's shipped. We can't fix it. We can't address it. Like, it's just not possible for whatever reason. And so over the last over 5 years, you know, that we've had the game out, the fact that we can address those things, like people's feedback, and, you know, if they're having a problem in the live game, that we can fix it actively, like right away, is very satisfying in terms of like actually being able to evolve it and make it the best experience possible. And then to go to the events and see people that are passionate about a game that we're all working on is very humbling, in the fact that, like, I don't know, it's exciting to me that people care enough to come out and take their time to actually like see us, and it's like, okay, I mean, we're just, you know, I don't really think about it that way. I just want it. I'm glad that we make a game that's good enough that people care about it that much. So to me, that's what feels good. That's what makes me want to come to work every day.
I always find it like very energizing. Just sitting behind the computer monitor with the controller in your hand or whatever, you can kind of have a distance between you and the player. If your only view of the player is like the forums, that's a very stilted, kind of myopic view. It's that one-on-one kind of like in-person interaction you have with the players at these events. It's really energizing. It's really exciting. These people are excited. They enjoy the game. They have strong opinions for better or for worse, and that's really cool. I think the most, for me, and I think for most developers, the most gratifying thing is seeing someone enjoy what you've worked on. I think that's probably why a lot of people work in this industry, is they want to create something that people enjoy and it means something to them. And to get that feedback in person is very special.
People are super intense. I think that's the part that I absolutely love.
What? How dare you?
How dare I? Yeah, like in the first, sometimes I'll be in an event and within 2 minutes they're talking about damage control policy in the Pacific, IJN versus USN, or they'll be talking about strategic air targeting in terms of some of the decisions that were made on Eastern Front versus Western Front, or they'll start talking about Kursk or something like that. And these are not things that if I walk up to somebody who's not into this stuff and start talking about it, they don't know what's going on, and immediately you get into a really heated argument about something like that. And that's absolutely amazing to me. It's like a big collection of people who share like interests, and that's really fascinating. It's really amazing. I love that.
There's a lot of feature suggestions, and sometimes they're weirdly on the money. Like there'll be something that we're working on, and we have to be like, "Oh, that's a great idea. We should, we'll think about that." It's like, yeah, we're making that.
That's when you start getting paranoid. Like, do they know
What
something?
do you know?
What do you know?
Who did you talk to?
Someone leave.
Was it the anime wizard?
Oh no,
It's a child eye.
Child Eye told him everything.
First and the last video I've ever owned.
You're like, never again.
Yikes.
And then we never saw Child Eye again.
Lead designer Child Eye. Yep.
Lead design. Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've supplanted Geoff.
Supplanted
It's
Jeff.
about damn time. Is this like Klingons? If I mention another franchise, you guys have to kill me, and then
Yes.
please do. Captain Fade.
Yeah, Kelvin.
I have a couple questions from the players, and I'm going to ask a few, and then after that, I'm going to ask the entire team one question, and then we'll wrap up the session. These questions came from the forums, so pretty much the players who are always there giving feedback, they're mostly in here. Broke 1, where are all the clan features?
It came up at Cantini as well.
I've been asking for that for ages, so look at me.
This is where they all just beat the crap out of me, I guess. Where are all the clan features? You know what? We've made several attempts at clan features, and if I may be so bold, there's a lot of stuff that the PC's done that I don't think would work with the console, like the clan wars and the clan map stuff.
I just want my emblem.
The amount of people. Well, that is also something I'd really like to. But just finish my thought. I don't see the engagement going into that for the console version. We had something that. What the hell? We had something called factions that we tried several times, which would be basically clans would become members of factions, and factions would fight each other and different things. And we tried different simulations, and we actually even collected real data and assigned different groups into these factions. We can just grab your data and see what would happen as a hypothetical scenario, and it never really resulted in anything that from a game design standpoint looked like it would have engagement or meaningful ability to manipulate, so on and so forth. So we actually walked away and shelved that feature for some time. Now if it comes back, great, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. There's a lot of ideas we've had that either just didn't pan out, weren't the right time, or were garbage. We've had garbage ideas. In terms of clans, it's true, right? Not everyone's we don't just crank out oh, genius, genius, genius. It's usually genius, genius, okay, garbage, genius,
Name a specific feature while you're doing that would be great.
Oh.
Genius, genius. Specific feature.
Nick worked on
Whoa, this is
the mini game during the launch.
Oh, I put my heart and soul into it.
Yes, you did.
Please play the mini game.
Play the mini game. Nick worked on it. Anyway, clans. Like Leo mentioned, their clan emblems on the vehicles would be super cool. There should be more clan features. It's just not something that's stuck in either a priority or something we found that we were happy. And to go back to the crank of genius to garbage, I don't want to ship anything that's garbage. None of us do. So I'm sorry it's not there. I'll actually own that. If you want to look at all of us, what is this, 7 of us, and say, who's responsible? Just point at me and say, the lead designer's a jerk. And I'll be like, eh. But yeah, there you go.
I do think that there's been, I've heard a lot of players asking for clan features. They came up at Cantini.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that we don't like the idea. We do like the idea, and we have, as Geoff has suggested or mentioned, we have come up with a lot of ideas and prototype things. And we have a lot of other ideas about what we might do with clans. It's difficult to prioritize that over some of the other really cool stuff that we're working on for you. And but I do know in a game that's been around for 5 years or longer, like our game is about to be, I think a shift of focus onto kind of community type of features is pretty natural. So you never know. You never know.
You
Awesome.
really
You
don't.
never know.
That question was from Brogue One. The next
Thank you.
question
Brogue One!
is from Beyond Flamenco. Will players at some point be involved in the balancing process?
They already are. No, they
just
already
don't
are.
know it.
Like, oh, come on.
It
get
was
lots-
data. That's what they contribute.
They also give us a lot of feedback. And honestly, there was some people that completely shot down some of the OP mercenary tanks. It's okay, so it's not the only time the floodgates are open for everybody to contribute is your playstyle, right? We look at all of your data. We look at how this vehicle across this popularity, across this skill set is comparing within the battle tier range against other vehicles, and then decide what do we want to do if there's a problem? What is actually the definition of a problem? When do we do things? And I know I'm kind of touching into the really big balance change we did not too long ago. There's a whole video I did on how we do that from a high level in terms of the process. It's absolutely inform of the players. But if you're specifically saying, like, Johnny B. player, have an idea that tank 200 should have a higher alpha and rotate 5 degrees faster and be center track versus side track. Like we get a ton of that feedback all the time, and we get it either through common super test or through the forums. And if it's a high enough frequency on the forums, or if it's something we agree with, we will do the same thing we do with our ideas on it, is measure it analytically and see if we're right or not. And if it's through the super test, like every one of those tickets, and honestly, sometimes I'm like, oh, here's another one of these, and I roll my eyes just because there's so many, meaning you guys give us so much feedback, and then but we take everyone responsible. Like, the reason I roll my eyes is, like, the volume is vast, and so I'm trying to put, again, what's the phrase I used earlier, the big boy pants, and say, we got to look at this, we got some feedback, and then we say, no, it's fine, oh, it's not fine, we should change something, so on and so forth. I remember actually there was a tank recently that had really powerful, it was a mercenary tank, had really powerful HE, and the stock rounds weren't as great. And so instead of changing, was it the long bomb?
I think it was Yeah, it was a long bomb.
So we didn't change the actual tuning of the vehicle, and actually I don't think it's
The
out
ammo
yet.
loadout.
Yeah, we gave you more HE rounds, so they were like, use these, and it's just more of that's just an example of something that we wouldn't have done if it hadn't been for player feedback. And yes, that isn't a different, like, make its pen higher, make its blast radius bigger, but it's definitely something we wouldn't have done without the feedback.
Yeah, kind of the verbal feedback or like the written feedback from the forums definitely clues us in, especially if we get a high volume of it. Although the data is really what's the most compelling to us when we go to make changes. Because kind of anecdotally, I can get killed by the same tank, in 2 or 3 different games in a row, and it can feel to me that that tank is really OP. And maybe it is or maybe it isn't. But it's the data, that kind of aggregate data across hundreds and thousands of battles that will reveal if there really is a problem. I know that early on we had the high tier check tanks, and we thought that they might be OP.
They were so OP.
Well, at first we said
we watched them for quite some time, though.
We watched them for quite a while, and we said actually it's just because it's a few really good players. Like, there's not a lot of players that have this tank, so the data is being skewed. We continued to watch it, and we said after some time, no, it actually is. There's a problem here. But it's funny, I don't think anyone was complaining about those tanks. No one was saying,
because they weren't in the battle that often. But
Yeah.
as they became more popular, you'd actually see what Nick is talking about is we can also measure, and I know Daryl's trying to jump in.
Yeah.
I promise to shut up quick, Darold, but like
No.
we can say how popular is this tank. So like if we say a tank, oh my God, it's doing way better than any other tank, we can look, oh, only the absolute best players are actually playing it. The guys that usually win, I'm going to make up a really ridiculous number. The guys who win 90% of the time are playing this tank. So of course it looks like it's doing better than anything else. But as with the Czech tanks, which we were like, these look OP, let's keep watching them. I think they're OP. As we saw them normalize, because more and more people got them, we're like, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the pros.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't think people believe it, but every shot fired is logged. It's not.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of skepticism and everything else, but the sheer amount of data, we had to develop a lot of technology that I think people from other games are even surprised when they hear about the amount of data that we collect. So this is not a question of agenda or a filter or something like that. We are actually collecting all of this data, and it takes a lot of analytic power to actually analyze this data, to parse it out, and yes, we're doing this time series and all this other stuff. We have a lot of people who know math very, very well who are looking at this analytic stuff. Well, I'm just saying, right? We have analysts that can look at all this data.
No, I'm just being a dick. Don't worry.
He's not here right now, so we can make fun of him. But there are people here who can do data analytics and look at time series and look at different qualifiers and actually come to some conclusions from that. And this happens all the time. You go to a casino, right, and you think you're winning or losing based on one or two events, but over the cumulative event, your experience may feel very real to you, but when you look at the odds, the odds are stacked against you from the casino, right? But if you go in there and you win a $2,000 jackpot, you're like, wow, this is great. It's real easy to win money. And then you walk in another time and you don't win a thing. That really taints your opinion. And those are very anecdotal evidence. But the truth is, over time, and when you're able to collect so much information from so many different battles, we can get pretty definitive information about specific tanks. And I think the biggest problem that we have is for tanks that are not played often. That's where I think, that's when you start to have, some of these things, and that's why it takes time, because we have to collect data over time.
Yeah.
Do we have more time for more questions, or are you guys
How many
good to
questions
stick
you got?
around? Like about 5.
Let's keep going and see what happens.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, the next question is from player Your Papadiox. Is there a process towards selecting maps that go into rotation, or does the team just plan a handful at random?
It's not random.
A little bit of both.
Apparently I'm wrong. It's completely random. I was told it's not random.
Jump to conclusions of that.
Oh, snap. We selected the maps per battle tier that we thought made sense based on their size and the popularity and so on and so forth, and then weighted them accordingly. And then one of the processes the level design team, of which none are here except for Gabe, does all the time is which maps are the worst in terms of balance, which is, this one it's 52-48. Can we make that 51-49? Whatever it is. And then we're constantly doing actually really minor changes to get really big results on those map balances. And that also shifts whether or not a map stays in rotation or changes rotation. But it's mostly a creative, dare I say, popularity / subjective call on the first pass on what maps go into battle tiers. And I think it's been a while since we did a poll on which maps are your favorite, but I remember we've done that before. And then it's based on user feedback and honestly if there's a problem. We've had problems on maps where we're like, shut that thing down until we fix it.
I was going to say, one thing that I think that there's a misconception from the community is that because we've added a new feature, we have to remove a map.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be great to have, you guys talk about that, because I think that's one thing that I see the community kind of react to all the time.
Yeah, there are technical reasons we've removed maps, but they're generally not tied to a specific feature. It's
usually just memory. There's
can
only
be
so much
issues.
the console
Occasionally we
holds.
might find a bug that's really only apparent in a particular map, and it's important for us to have the player experience be as good as it can be, and if it means taking one map out to keep your player experience good, we'll do that, and then we'll fix the map and it'll come back at a later time. But yeah, it's usually just random bugs and problems that pop up that we might pull a map for.
I'm not involved in the discussions necessarily, but I've never heard of like, oh yeah, we have to pull this map because if we want to have, feature X or something. It's usually just like, hey, we're adding this large amount of content. and we only have but so much space, so we're going to have to make some concessions until we rotate those things out or make optimizations or something. Like, it's usually that kind of a discussion, not a, you know.
Yeah, the only time they would be tied together is with like the event maps, but the event map, like for Halloween or Christmas or something like that. But at that point, if the map doesn't work, there's no event, so we would fix any of those problems. So
That's
no, that
never
doesn't
happened.
happen.
I just thought
shoot in the face.
I read that in the forums all the time, and I know people get very frustrated about that, and I understand. But it's not a zero-sum game for the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's different departments, and so like Leo doing a pass on like balance is not affecting, you know, Gabe's time at all.
What are you talking about? We can't ship like 4 maps now, so.
Because of the balance here.
Yeah.
I will say that Rybot sometimes comes up and says, "You should just take these maps out. I don't like them."
Yeah.
All the
And I'm
time,
like-
you would be surprised.
And I'll be like,
how
"But the
often it does
users
that.
will be really mad and they'll blame us." And
players.
she's like, "Do it."
There's
So it's
only
Rybot's
one
fault.
map that I
Yeah.
just can't.
She's like, this
It's
tank killed my
Northwest.
KV-1.
You don't like Northwest?
I can't
Delete.
deal with that map.
We'll put into the Python. I'll just sneak into the Python. If it's your UID, the matchmaker will delete your account so you don't have to play Northwest.
There it is.
That is not the resolution. of
That's
it.
a great.
Customer service.
I will upload.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up because I know you guys have a lot of things to do, and I can answer these questions later today to players. But I want to ask all of you one final question, and this actually comes from Sentience, and he's asking to
The concept of sentience is asking us a question.
He's
That's
asking,
heavy.
what were the lessons learned for 2018?
That is a crazy good
That's a
question.
That's easy.
All right, starts off.
Yeah.
There's never enough time.
Oh, that's a good
I
answer.
feel
Never
like
enough
that.
time.
Wow.
There's never
Mic
agree
drop.
with that.
Done.
Leo was due for something genius. You made it.
Ouch.
And poosh, I get punched live on our live stream.
I quit.
There you go.
No, please don't.
That would not be good.
Lessons for 2018.
I mean, I think to tie into that, I mean, because we've had so many things going on in 2018, it is about, there isn't ever enough time, but then the lesson is how do we manage that time? Like me personally, especially if we're working with other studios and other time zones and stuff, like how do we do all of that stuff and then not run ourselves ragged, and also make sure that we just put out good stuff that's not, doesn't have error, you know, bugs in it and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know. It sounds really managerial of me to be like, time management was what I learned this year. But I mean, it's true. I mean, we're constantly shifting things around and trying to balance them all and make sure that they all turn out as best they can. So I think, you know, I think the thing that we learned, especially with Mercenaries, was making the hard decisions. Like, I remember Geoff and I being, again, in the MMA one, when we were fighting and I had him in a grapple and I said, okay, well, we can't have all of these things. And it's like, what are we going to cut? Like, what, you know, and so it was like, okay, I'll give up these crew features, fine. And so,
And then you broke his finger.
anyway, you got to teach him a lesson. And so, but yeah, I mean, making
finger should I
the
hold?
hard decisions is not easy. That's
It's
why they're
good.
hard decisions. But you have to try to make what you think is the design result.
Yeah, Geoff just
leave me
wants to
alone, man.
murder both of you.
You see what I have to deal with? They're great.
Well, that was passive aggressive, but that's okay.
They're great. They're okay.
It stinks.
They'll
They're
do.
fine.
Derailed again.
Dead eyes.
Could you use his correct name?
To wrap it up,
Please.
2018 was great. We had a lot of stuff going on, and it was really, it was fun. But no, yes, that was not a statement. I
But
just
no,
said
yes.
I just said no and yes together.
I'm trying to wait for like a break point to know when you're done.
That was it. I was trying.
He's done now. He's done.
Calm
Geoff
blue
Haines.
ocean.
Do
That's
you have
it.
something to add?
I do, but I'm wondering if anybody else has anything.
We're a global product. And the lesson I learned is your understanding of what that means may not necessarily match what other people's understanding are.
Do you mean you personally or the players?
No, me personally.
Okay.
Like it's a very big and complex ecosystem that we've built, and it's only because we are a global company that we're able to pull it off. But it also means that we really have to have our ears open, because sometimes we think we heard what we heard and we really didn't, and that's like a big coordination problem. It's also a big comprehension problem, because this culturally different cultures approach problem solving and collaboration in very different ways, and sometimes you misunderstand, or you don't quite, you think that you've got a handle on the situation and you don't, and unfortunately sometimes it manifests itself a little bit later than you're hoping. But you know, you move on, you learn, and you experience from that. And you know, that's the thing about being part of a company that has branches all over the world, is that you're constantly being exposed to people from very different countries that have very different ways of doing the same thing. Because we think, oh, we're all game developers, we all kind of think the same way, we all design the same way. There may have been a time when that was true, but I think that that's really diverged a lot. And that's the world we live in now.
I think for me, it's a little bit, it's just learning how to work on a live service game, because this is the first time I've ever, you know, worked on this type of game. Everything else in my career so far has been, we're going to work towards this ship date and then we're done, kind of like what Haines was saying earlier, where once it's done, it's out there. And unless there's a really critical bug that we need to patch immediately, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So for me, it's been really fun going through this entire year and all the content that I've worked on, starting off with like placing cameras in levels, learning how, you know, our level editor works, and getting tiny bits of things to work on, to being able to work on our AI system and improve it over time, to, you know, taking over Tank Commander on our side of the pond and helping see that through. So it's been really cool being able to experience all this for me, and I'm lucky to be here. So
That's cool.
I think that with Mercenaries, we learned a cool lesson that actually we took from War Stories. And Geoff, I know that you find this to be true. With War Stories, we designed this like mega feature.
Yeah.
Remember when we were planning War Stories? It was going to be this crazy thing where War Stories was going to have its own tech tree, and you could migrate from multiplayer to War Stories and back, and every tank would be like have a dupe, and
Yeah, it wasted so many people's time.
it was like this, like we're trying to like make this the perfect feature, you know, like the perfect thing. And I feel like Mercenaries, we took those lessons about kind of spinning our wheels a bit, and we instead say, hey, what's like the core tenets, what's like the core thing that's important to this mode, what can we, what do we have to ship with, like, for this to be viable? And I feel like we hit that, and then we did a little bit extra too to make it all that more fun. And then within, if I can do a two-parter, the contracts of Mercenaries, when we started those off, we actually had some really smart thinking, some really great quantitative analysis about like how much work should go into each contract. We had people running numbers saying like, well, it takes this much time and effort, like in terms of like we could quantify the amount of effort it takes to get a tier 8 vehicle. And so for you to get this mercenary tier 8 vehicle, it should take this much, like you should hit these very specific criteria, which is going to total up to like the same amount of effort, like in a numeric sense. And that was like really smart thinking, but in practice what we're finding was that it felt so much harder to do. And so we just had to be just a little bit more friendly with it. So hopefully you found, like, as we've been rolling contracts out and re-rolling contracts out, you know, kind of revising them, we're trying to be a little bit more friendly with them. And I hope that's been your experience.
Am I north here?
No, we're just
I can't see
chuckling.
it. Like, I saw it.
Single thing.
No one's saying.
Yeah, I would agree with the time thing, and just we always have a lot of good ideas and things we want to do, and just being able to prioritize them. And I think we are learning to prioritize things based on the player's perspective more so than our own perspective, and that's been a good way to cull things. And with Mercenaries and a lot of things, it's like we can only pick 3 things. What are the 3 things that are going to benefit the players most, and they're going to see and they're going to appreciate? And that's helped us make decisions as opposed to just doing the stuff we think is cool. Sometimes they sync up, but a lot of times that's been very helpful in deciding what to do next and what can wait till later.
Yeah, I think I'd sum up, like, everybody says what I'm about to say again, but just to reiterate what I've learned from 2018. Listen and love the players. Listen to and love the players. Like, always keep your ear to the grindstone. Listen to everything everyone's saying. See what's loudest. See who you trust. See who everybody who's playing the game, what they want, what they don't want, all that stuff. Trust the team. The team, whenever, instead of a monolithic design that gets chipped away by time, aka War Stories. And War Stories is good. The retail version, I'm really proud of what we did. Yeah. But it was like this and needed to be this. Trust the team when they say it's too much. Trust the team when they say it's not enough. Trust the team when they say we're not going in the right direction. Ask those questions, and less is more. Again, we're going to have a whole separate game mode with a separate tech tree and this different grinding principle and all these different hero tanks you can get to what is important about Mercenaries. We need vehicles, we need contracts, everything else is gravy. And I even remember when I was in a meeting with Pain God, and we picked a big cup of that gravy. I was like, we need the garage. We kind of have to have the garage, because when we do this new rebranding, when we do World of Tanks Mercenaries versus just World of Tanks console, even if you haven't heard a damn thing, you haven't read online or anything, you're just going to play on your console. If you button mash into that new version, was that 4.5?
I think so.
Yeah.
4.5.
You're going to come in, and instead of seeing this interior hangar that you've been seeing for the last 4.5 years or 4 years or whatever the timing was, you're going to see this field with mud and ambience and people planning on a table, and you're going to be like, something's different, and impactful, less is more. That's what I learned from 2018. That's what I'm bringing into 2019.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. To the next 5.
Expect even less from us in 2019.
Thanks for watching.
I was
the
so
less we
close
do, the better we do.
Close this session in a good note.
That's exactly what I meant.
So
okay.
close.
Oh.
Okay, cut.
But
All right,
there we
got
go. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.